Have you ever wondered why, as we grow older, we find ourselves speaking less and less? There are days when just the sound of the phone ringing is enough to weigh down the heart. Not sadness, not anger toward anyone, just a quiet reluctance to say anything at all. Could it be that something is shifting within us, subtle, unnamed, but deeply felt? If you've ever felt that way, then perhaps this video was made just for you. And if those quiet questions touch something in your heart, you're warmly invited to share a few words in the comments below. And if you feel this video might bring comfort to a friend walking a similar path, feel free to follow this channel so we can keep walking this journey together, slowly and but meaningfully. There was a time when just the soft clinking of a bicycle at the alley's edge was enough to warm the heart, because it meant a friend was coming by. There was a time when afternoons unfolded gently on the front porch, a hand waving a palm leaf fan, a kind smile on the lips, and conversations drifting from stories of the neighborhood to tales from 10 years ago. We talked endlessly without tiring, laughed for hours without pause, because back then, simply being near one another was joy enough. There was a time when the little radio on the old wooden table clicked on precisely at 6 a.m. The newsreader's voice, a bolero tune, or the sound of the morning report. We listened to them so often they became familiar, like distant friends. Even the slightest change in the announcer's tone would make us wonder, why does it sound different today? Those memories, simple as they are, still make the heart stir quietly, because we once lived in a place where even a neighbor's greeting was proof that we were seen. We once called home a little house where the clatter of dishes, the chopping board's rhythm, or the playful scolding of children were the sounds of a living, breathing family. And connection, back then, needed no smartphones, no social networks, just walking past each other's doors, exchanging a glance. And somehow, we already understood one another. Ms. Eleanor, an older friend living in the outskirts of Seattle, once shared with me, back then, just seeing my neighbor's silhouette mowing the lawn through the window was enough to bring me peace. Not because I needed anything, but because I knew I wasn't alone. Yes, not everyone speaks much, but everyone has had a time when they belong somewhere, and that place, though long gone, still lingers in our memory like the scent of morning tea, like the creak of a wooden latch being opened at dawn. A time when closeness didn't need effort, because people were already close by the rhythm of life itself. Those were not merely the years of our youth. They were the years when we still felt ourselves flowing within life's current, not apart from it. Perhaps now you no longer live in that old house. Perhaps the neighbors from back then have moved away or are no longer here. But the feeling of once belonging to a warm and familiar community still remains, nestled deep in the memory, untouched by time. And if you can still recall it, even just a summer noon filled with cicadas or waiting at the old bus stop for your child to come home from school, then please smile, because in those small, quiet moments is the proof that you have truly lived, deeply, genuinely, and wholeheartedly woven into the tapestry of this life. No one said anything. No one did anything wrong. And yet, one day we quietly realize we no longer feel like picking up the phone. It's not out of anger, it's just that after the phone rings, the heart no longer rises to meet it the way it used to. Long conversations, repeating the same things over and over. Crowded gatherings where everyone laughs loudly, yet no one truly listens. We were once so familiar with that, even fond of it, but somehow, somewhere along the way, something inside began to feel tired. Mr. Thomas, an elderly gentleman living in the suburbs of Yorkshire, once shared a moment of quiet truth. One day, someone invited me to a birthday party for an old friend. I nodded, said yes, but when the time came, I just sat on the front step, looking out at the garden. Not sad, not regretful, just I didn't feel the need to go. That feeling, it isn't sorrow, it's more like a quiet retreat, one that arrives without a sound and without a warning. We still rise early, still water the plants, still brew tea, still remember the birthdays of our children and grandchildren. But something within us, a part that once lit up with every invitation, has gone still. Like an old radio that stopped broadcasting, and no one noticed exactly when. Perhaps it's the years. Perhaps it's witnessing too many goodbyes, too many parties ending in silence. Or perhaps it's because something inside us has quietly shifted. Once we longed to be at the center of it all. Now, we find peace sitting at the edge, watching. Once we reached out first. Now we choose stillness, not to turn away from the world, but to gently turn inward. There was a time when Grace, a dear friend once full of energy, leaned over during a gathering and whispered, "I used to make a list every weekend, who I needed to call, who I should visit. Now I just send one simple line, 'If you need me, I'm home.' It's short, but it's honest. And the strange thing is, no one blames us for that. Maybe they too are beginning to feel the same. Just that no one said it out loud yet. When we retreat, it isn't loneliness. It's simply not seeing ourselves in all that noise anymore. And from that moment, everything begins to shift, softly like a leaf falling. No sound, but somehow, just enough to stir the soul. There are mornings when we wake up feeling weightless, no appointments, no messages to reply to. Just the sound of leaves brushing against the rooftop, sunlight filtering through the window bars, and a long, quiet stillness settling deep inside. And then softly a question rises from within. Am I drifting away from the world? A part of us, long accustomed to living for others, starts to worry. Am I growing distant? Am I retreating in a way that's unhealthy? Helen, a dear friend living in southern Australia, once shared, "One day I realized I had turned down 4 invitations in a row, and I started wondering, is something wrong with me? I used to be the lively one, cheerful, laughing loudly at every gathering, and now I just want to stay in my little kitchen, wash dishes, and sip tea alone." No one blamed her. No one questioned her. It was she who judged herself first, because somewhere along the way, we were taught that connection is a sign of life, and silence might be mistaken for loneliness. And so, when we begin to feel comfortable in the quiet, we begin to doubt ourselves. We ask, am I being selfish? Am I abandoning someone I care about? But strangely, the more we ask those questions, the more we start to uncover a quiet truth. We don't resent anyone. We aren't cold. It's just that our body and mind have begun to choose more carefully what truly matters. In younger days, we could spend hours in a conversation, even if it was shallow, even if it led nowhere. Now, even a meaningless comment can feel draining, not because we become hard to please, but because we become more sensitive to what feels empty, repetitive, or insincere. Arthur, 75, living in Ireland, once shared during a soft-spoken interview, "I no longer fear my silence because I've learned some things are best left unspoken, not because I don't want to share, but because in that silence, I finally hear myself most clearly." And truly, if we pause long enough, if we listen gently enough, we'll begin to see. We're not withdrawing because we're broken. We're not stepping back because we're afraid. We're simply returning to ourselves, slowly, deeply, with intention. But this stage is often misunderstood, even by us. Sometimes we don't yet have the words to explain it, and so we struggle. One part of us longs for peace, the other still misses the conversations of old. And then, a moment will come, an evening, a crowded room, a strange breeze through an open door, and we will know it's time to rise and quietly leave that noisy room. That evening, it was a spring night. The sky hadn't turned fully dark yet, but string lights had already flickered on across the garden. Laughter filled the air, and the clinking of glasses echoed like the familiar applause of reunion. Mrs. Iris, a 74-year-old woman living in the suburbs of Vancouver, sat quietly in the midst of it all. She had once been the heart of gatherings like these, The one who always remembered birthdays and baked the first cake. The one who checked in the moment she heard someone was unwell. But that evening, she simply sat still. Not sad, not tired, just no longer feeling like she belonged there. The laughter around her continued, but every conversation about new recipes, who'd gained weight, who just returned from vacation, glided past her ears without leaving a trace on her heart. The golden lights shimmered on the surface of her wine glass, glistening but not warm. Then someone turned to her and asked, "Do you remember our trip to Dalat? We laughed so much." She smiled, nodded, but inside, she felt empty. Not because the memory wasn't beautiful, but because that kind of joy no longer reached her the way it once did. And so, while no one was looking, she quietly stood up. No goodbyes, no explanations. She walked home, just a few blocks away. Along the way, a light rain began to fall. She hadn't brought an umbrella, but she didn't feel the need to cover herself. She just walked, as if stepping out of an old scene and gently returning to herself. When she reached home, she took off her damp shoes, brewed a pot of hot tea, and sat down in the old wooden chair by the window. Outside, the rain kept falling, soft and steady. Inside, only the sound of water boiling and a strange, unfamiliar silence. For the first time in years, she didn't feel empty being alone. She didn't feel guilty for leaving the party early. She no longer feared the silence, because in that quiet moment, she understood something. She had stepped into a new light, no longer belonging to noise and brightness, but to something deeper, quieter, and more real. All of us will have a moment like that someday. It won't be a crisis. It won't be a shock. Just a gentle turning, a glance, a dinner party, a passing rain, and suddenly we'll know. From this moment on, we can no longer live the way we used to. Since that light rain evening, Mrs. Iris was no longer quite the same. Not a dramatic change, not a grand decision, just a gentle letting go. An invitation to a party. She declined softly. A long phone call. She replied with a message, "I'll call you later." A lively group chat. She stepped out without explanation. At first, a small ache of guilt lingered. She had once been the connector, the one who never missed a thing. But strangely, that feeling didn't last long. It was slowly replaced by something lighter. She began to have more mornings to brew her tea slowly, more noons to read an old book, uninterrupted, more afternoons spent watching sunlight fall through potted plants, without glancing at the clock to rush off somewhere. No one called it a rebirth, but inside her, something had quietly come alive again. No witnesses, no celebration, just the quiet realization that she no longer felt exhausted by trying to please everyone. Mr. Elliot, 78, living in a coastal town in France, once shared at a retirement community gathering, "I no longer attend meetups where I know nothing real will be said. Instead, I walk to the shore every morning. Sometimes someone greets me, sometimes not, but not once have I felt lonely." That's something only those who've walked through that quiet turning truly understand. True loneliness isn't about being without people. It's about having to stay close to things that no longer feel true. And only after passing through that weariness do we find the courage to shed a layer we've carried for years. The layer of always being available, of always smiling, of always being proper. And even the layer of older people must keep up appearances. No one told us to let go. No one handed us a key to change our lives. We simply chose a different path and walked it. No fanfare, no announcements, no social media posts, just a pause. And no longer following the same old road. Not everyone will understand. There will be questions, a few side glances, some subtle remarks. But in that moment, we begin to see the ones who are true will stay, and the ones who only knew the old version of us will slowly fade into the mist. That morning, Mrs. Iris brewed her tea early. The same old Celadon teapot with a small chip on the lid. The same wooden table by the window where she had sat for over 20 years. The same tiny lavender pot by the glass pane, once brought home by her late husband during a trip to the southern countryside. But something had changed, not the place, but the way she saw it. She had sat there many times before, but her mind had always been busy. Busy with to-do lists, unmade calls, and people she felt she needed to keep up with. Now she simply sat, not rushing, not chasing, and for the first time, she realized she was truly present. Sunlight slipped past the little plant, casting a soft golden beam on the teacup in her hand. Everything was the same, and yet it looked quietly beautiful, not because it had changed, but because she had finally become still enough to see it. An old friend, David, who lived in West London, once sent her a short message after hearing her describe that feeling. At last, we're learning how to live, instead of just trying to survive. And in that moment, she understood. The relationships that remained in her life, though fewer, felt truer, warmer, more complete. No need for big parties anymore. Just a cup of tea with the neighbor across the street, someone who understood both her silences and her laughter. No need to keep up with everyone. Just one evening call from her daughter. "Mom, are you feeling okay today?" And that alone was enough to warm the heart. It wasn't that she had left anyone behind. She had simply stopped trying to keep it all together. Now she only held on to what still shimmered in her heart. There were afternoons when she wandered into the garden, watering plants, gently stroking the old cat asleep in the shade. Sometimes not thinking about anything at all, just being. And one day, as she passed by the wedding photo on the wall, she smiled. Not with sorrow like before, but with a quiet peace, because that memory, once sharp with longing, had softened into a gentle light. A place where someone she loved still existed, just in a different way. We cannot turn back time, but we can return to the things we once loved, with a new soul, one that has learned how to see, how to listen, and how to truly live. Mrs. Iris no longer shows up at every gathering like she once did, but every Sunday morning she walks her old dog Leo through the park. Same familiar path, same stone bench, same coffee cup in hand, and if you look closely, you'll notice something special. She's in no rush. She doesn't need to make conversation. She doesn't try to draw anyone in, but somehow anyone who sits beside her feels their heart soften. A small child once said to his mother after meeting her in the park, "Mom, I like sitting near that lady because it feels warmer where she's sitting." No one can explain why, but some people, simply by being present in the right way, become a quiet kind of light. No speeches, no teaching, just living gently, mindfully, so that others looking on feel like they too could live that way. Claire, a young neighbor, once shared with Mrs. Iris on a soft, rainy afternoon, "You may not know this, but when I'm feeling lost, just walking past your home, seeing the golden kitchen light through the window, it helps me breathe easier." Mrs. Iris only smiled. She didn't say a word, because she knew real light doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be there. Once she had tried so hard to stay connected so she wouldn't feel lonely. Now she no longer tries, and somehow she's connected more deeply than ever, to things that are real, to things that don't need words. Older people don't need to give speeches. They just need to live true to themselves. And that alone becomes a powerful lesson for the generations watching, not through advice, but through small gestures. The way we ladle soup with care, the way we open the window to let in the evening breeze, the way we sip tea slowly, without glancing at the clock. At this age, passing something down no longer means teaching anything. It means leaving behind an open seat so that anyone passing by might feel the quiet urge to sit down. We no longer need to be the center of anything. We only need to be a point of stillness in the current so that others might see, somewhere in this rushing world, there is still someone choosing to be still. There is still a rhythm that resists the crowd. There is still one gaze that knows how to smile without saying a word. So if you've been feeling that you no longer fit into the old noise, please believe this: it's not a step back. It's a return to the light, the kind that needs no words yet warms the hearts of all who come near. Thank you for walking with us to the very end of this story. If any part of this journey touched something in your heart, you're warmly invited to leave a message below, because somewhere someone else might be waiting to read exactly those words, just to know they are not alone. A life message. Have you ever found yourself no longer drawn to long conversations? Not because you've grown distant, but because your heart is seeking a deeper kind of quiet. Growing older doesn't take away your ability to connect. It simply teaches you to choose more carefully, to keep only what truly touches your soul. You no longer need to be everywhere, speak to everyone, or please them all. Sometimes just sitting by the window in the morning, brewing tea, listening to the birds, that too is a complete way of living. If you find yourself slowly stepping back, please don't worry, you are not alone. You're simply returning back to yourself, back to a gentle light that needs no words, yet quietly warms everything around it. And did you know, this quietness you're choosing today might become a soft light for someone else, still struggling in the noise of the world. You don't have to say much, just live gently. That alone is enough to pass something on without ever having to speak it out loud.